I've basically been doing subtrop rainforest restoration for 24 years, 25 years, and I think I'm starting to get the hang of it. Okay, it's really funny. For me, it's an honour to be here at the Arbor. It's like going to a massive martial arts gathering where you think you're hot shit because you're a black belt, and you get there and there's all these 5th dan, 6th dan, 7th dan black belts. So I'm pretty much in awe of a lot of people that are here that I've listened to the last couple of days. So, but basically I grew up in central Queensland, running around on a massive big river flat up there, and there was no rainforest. So, but grew up watching Harry Butler on Saturday night and then running out in the bush on Sunday morning and doing what Harry Butler did. And I always just wanted to be in the bush. That was my goal. So I had a bit of a epiphany at about 29 and just went, nah, I've got to follow my dream. So I've been doing it ever since. I don't see it as a job. I just love doing what I'm doing. So this is pretty much the pinnacle of what I was doing in some of these sites, that we would hike into these for 20 minutes to work in these areas. And that was sort of my pinnacle, from working from Green Corps trainees to working for contractors and then working for local government. And that was my goal, was to get to local government to work on these high ecological valued properties and spend long time. So as a contractor, you probably know you work a site for a year, you may not get it next year. You might do the primary work on something and not get to do the follow-up, or you don't do the primary work and you might have to do the follow-up and you don't know what people have done. So my intentions were to go to LGA so that I could have continuity. So some of these sites I got to work on 10 years, and that was where I started to learn. But what I seen from an early stage from Green Corps training was trying to teach 17 to 20-year-olds about ecological restoration while learning this myself. So it all started with kids coming up to me going, is this a camphor laurel? I've pulled out a camphor laurel. It's like, no, that's a native Litsia. Let's go back and plant that. So it was easy with lantana. I could just snap off a bit of lantana and stick it in their pocket and say, if it's not that, don't touch it. Do you know what I mean? So, and fast forward 25 years, I'm part of Friends of Parks, which is an organisation that's growing in Queensland, and it's like a land care group, but we work on Queensland parks, so national park lands, and we just volunteer. But I'm still doing the same thing. I'm teaching people how to identify things. I'm still having people going, oh, look, I pulled out a camphor, and it's still not. So I started to see a pattern a long time ago, and I started seeing, they're always mixing that plant for that plant. They're always mis-IDing that plant for that plant. And even working for LGA and working with guys with 15 years experience, and them leaving things and going, why did you leave that? Oh, because it's such and such. No, it's not. Have a look at it. So it wasn't just volunteers or trainees. I even seen that in experienced bush regenerators, that seedling identification is something that's not really taught. It's just something that you get from experience. So I started putting together little workshops like this, and they sort of grew, and then someone said, you should turn that into a book. So this year I become an author, and I'm still struggling with saying that. That's really funny because I haven't written this great novel, and I just, I don't. So whether I'm an author or not, but I've produced a book all based on that. So all my little PowerPoint presentations evolved into this. And look, I'm sorry that a lot of this information is for South East Queensland, Northern New South Wales, probably down to Coffs. But the principle is the same.
We're a national organisation.
We're a national organisation. So the principle of seedling identification is the thing. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. And it's not so much the seedlings that I'll talk about, but it's the principle of learning seedling identification. So main benefits of seedling identification is reduce off-target damage. That was my major goal. So that was why I started this, because I wanted to stop young bush regenerators taking out things. So you imagine if you've got one rare and threatened plant on your site, you might have a small site, and it's a seedling and someone doesn't know what it is and they spray it, you'll lose that. But if you've got one rare and threatened plant on your site and you're applying for grants, you know that ticks boxes. Okay, so for me, every seedling is important. The other thing is to measure resilience. And it's funny, I talk about likening gathering arbor to a martial arts gathering. So it's similar. You know, when you start off in ecological restoration or regen, you want to chop everything up and go at it at 100 mile an hour and clear it. But then as you learn, you want to go in and you just want to tickle it and see what it does. And understanding the resilience of a site. And to do that, you need to know what the seedlings are and be able to identify them. And you can tell how diverse your specimens that are going to germinate are. And then you can work out, oh, yep, we've got good resilience here. Let's clear the rest because it'll react. So, and for survey work, so if you're out doing bioconditioning and you're only IDing mature species, you're not getting a good example of what's on the ground. So again, it might be a recovering patch of bushland that you're doing a survey on. And if you don't understand and be able to ID those seedlings on the ground, your survey is inaccurate. And also, as we all know, best removal time is at a seedling stage. It takes less energy, it's quicker, it's easier to ID these things and take them out at that stage. Decreased time to canopy. As you all probably know, you can plant a tree in the ground and there'll be a seedling that's naturally germinated there and it'll kick its butt because the seedling's that's been there. It's opened up its dicotyledons and gone, yep, Easter's there, I'm going to keep growing. You put a plant in the ground that's been in a nursery all its life, it might be a year old, and it's like, oh, well, it's got to find where East is, it's got to readjust, no one's hosing me twice a day. Where a seedling that's germinated is going to outpower a planted specimen, well, in my experience anyway. And last is increased biodiversity. So, okay, so as a lot of you know, primary work is disturbance. That's what we're trying to do. And disturbance triggers germination. Okay? But they won't all be natives. I'm not sure if a lot of you guys know these species that are here, but this is one of the Solanaceae, Solanum. We call it devil's figs. It's a horrible thing. It's related to tobacco, but it overpowers everything. It's very, very prolific up north. But if you look at this, again, this isn't your sort of patch of veg, but for me, you can look at that. A young person might walk past and just flick that with a knapsack to take out those devil's figs and probably miss the little pipterus, little white cedar, and that's easy to do. So that's the thing of learning what you've got. Okay, so as I say to everyone, look closely before you weed. Whether you're hand weeding, whether you're spraying, have a look. It's not a rush, and I know as contractors we've got to make ground, and that's often a bit of a problem with the industry, that we're measured by meters of how fast we can walk through. So having that ability to be able to quickly identify things is going to make you a better spot sprayer and do maintenance much quicker. So again, in an instance like this, I'd probably kneel down or squat down and pull out those couple of tobaccos. But it's not really that good on this slide. But if you have a look at this little fella sitting in here, like these tobaccos, they stick out. But this little guy here, I don't know if you can notice that. So this is an area that was covered in lantana, and we pulled it out, and we've got tremor, tomentosa, just poison peach, just come up like a blanket. But there was all this other stuff in there. So, and if you can see that little guy, little lantana hiding in there, that can often be missed. So So as I say to people, look for a difference. Look for a difference in colour. Look for a difference in shape. Look for a difference in texture. And as you're working, that's the thing. Like someone said to me the other day, geez, that was pretty good. You can impersonate birds. And I said, well, that's what I did as a bush regenerator, working by myself in the field, mimicking birds, because that's what I was doing. So, but it's like whether you're out learning butterflies as you work or whether you're learning plants, seedlings is another thing. As you're working, you should be knowing what seedlings you're going to get pop up on your site. You should know what weedlings you're going to get pop up on your site. And then as you walk around, you should know them. You should be looking at them. And you should be able to work on those things. And that's just part of, I don't know, that's why I find restoration such a rewarding thing. There's so much to learn. I'll be able to walk out in the bush, well, I expect when I'm an old man, and still be learning stuff. It's limitless what we can learn. So, as I say to a lot of young bush regenerators and volunteers, when you're on site, you're there to learn. Just take it all in. Take everything in. So, okay, so you should all know this species of environmental pest, and I'm not talking about this guy here. This is Lantana camara. Pretty much most people should know it. But what about at weedling stage? So could you pick Lantana at a weedling stage? So if you've got a knapsack on, you're walking through an area, you're going to be able to ID that. And that was the whole point of everything that I've done, is to try and teach young people, volunteers, how to ID these things when they're small. Because it takes nothing to lean down and just pick that out and drop it behind you as you're walking. It's quite easy. I always made a thing of, when I was running teams, that as you walk into a site, you don't walk past a weed. I know you've got to walk to your line where your line's going to start, but that track in and out, that should be clean. As you walk in, you should pull that out. If I go bushwalking and there's Lantana on the side of the track, I pull it out, hang it up in the tree, show your work. You might encourage other people to go, oh yeah, this is what we do. Do you know what I mean? So you might embarrass national parks too. So, but with this, with being weedling, would you, or could you confuse it for these species? Okay, so these are three lookalikes for Lantana. So you've got Tremor, Calicarpa, and Pipterus. And they all look similar. Do you know what I mean? And to a lot of people, you can see the difference. But it's amazing. I can take volunteers out and I walk along and I have a long bamboo stake and I paint the tip of it a bright colour. And I'll put 2 volunteers with a knapsack on and we're doing maintenance. And I walk along and I go, spray that, spray that, spray that. And they're just like, how can you tell that's that? So what we take for granted, a lot of people don't see that difference. And this is a perfect example. A lot of people don't see those differences in that. So that's the whole idea of my workshops, and what became the book was just pointing out those subtle little differences. Like, you can't see it there, but that Pipterus gets a red petiole and gets a little bit longer, whereas Lantana hardly has, it's not sessile, but it's close to being like that. So Calicarpa has a more ovate leaf, and Tremor is alternate. So it's little differences. So this is, as I said, this is why seedling identification is critical in what we do. Okay, so where are the best places to learn seedlings? And for me, there's heaps of sites. So your own maintenance site is probably the best one, because you know what weeds you took out of there. So if you've got a list of weeds that you took out as woody weeds, they're the ones you're going to expect that are going to turn up on your site. If you're backing onto suburbia and across the road there's rows of crap from Bunnings, that's what you can expect to get in your site. But then again, if you look in your site and you've got dry eucalypt or heath or subtropical rainforest wetland, those species there familiarise yourself, because they're what's going to come up on your site. Okay, so I find maintenance sites are really good, because you can learn what you're working at, what you're looking at. In a nursery is another great place. I love, and I always have loved, propagating plants. I love watching little dicotyledons come up and open up, and it's just like, I can see that, because it's the shape of the seed. So you can know, like, I don't know if you know cobbler's pegs. You know, it's a long, thin little stick, but it's dicotyledons are these long, thin little things. So it represents. So you can see that, you can use that and go, oh, I know what that seed for that species is, because the dicotyledons will look like that. And we don't need to know them at that stage. That's just something I like to do, and I like to look at that sort of thing. So some seedlings have massive big dicotyledons. You think, how did that wrap out from underneath that seed? So some are really, really noticeable, undistinguishable between anything. So nursery is a great place. So especially if you're collecting seed from your site and you're propagating it at home or in an industrial nursery, that's where you're going to learn these things and watch them as they grow. So forest edges is another one. Like if you walk around the edge of here, as the forest is coming out, that's where you can see all your seedlings. So it's a great place to learn these things. And then forest paths. So a lot of the photos that I've taken for this workshops and for my book, they've all been done with my phone. I don't have a flash camera, and it's just been opportunistic. But I will go walking in set forests to look for certain species and find them along the forest edge. And I've spent many a time in this position, like this, taking photos, and you have people walking past going, oh, what have you got? Have you got a snake, or have you got this? And I'm like, no, it's just it's a seedling. And it's like, yeah, right, weirdo. And they just keep cruising. But that's one of the best places to go, and along those national park trails, because you know what all the species are, because half of them have got bloody signs on them. So you can walk around. And I'll show you later on a little trick that I use. It's just like working backwards. But yeah, so forest paths is a great place to it. And whether you're in this heathland or in subtropical rainforest, you can walk along those edges and find those things. Plantings is another one. So if you go to a planting and you got a planting, it's got a little tag in it. So if ever I'm doing a planting with school kids, I'll be like, righto, mate, what's that tag say? Oh, Achiacasa, and you go, oh, that's an acacia, fimbriata, or whatever it may be. Remember that? Stick that tag in your pocket. When you come back here later, you walk past that plant, you know its name's acacia. Okay, so what should we consider when trying to ID plants? It's the same, whether we're trying to ID fully mature trees or we won't have seeds, we won't have flowers. But those same characteristics, we're looking for those same things, whether it's a seedling this big or whether it's a sapling or a mature specimen. So it's the same thing. Location is the first thing. No good looking for subtropical rainforest trees out in semi-arid land. No good looking for heath when you're in subtropical rainforest. It's the same. Location is first. I'm not sure in New South Wales what websites you can go to and get a printout of your regional ecosystem or your vegetation community. But we can do that in Queensland. We can just type that in, get the coordinates, bang, and get regional ecosystem. We can get a list of that. And of course, it's not going to be exact, but it'll give you some sort of indication. So if you know where you are, you should know what species you're going to find around there. So I was just saying, so regional ecosystems, look at those things. That'll give you your guide to what species you should be looking for. Just some basic botany. So with a lot of the other workshops I run, I just do some basic botany just to show people some basic skills. So they're not bamboozled when I say things like petiole or gland or something like that. So just having those little bit of knowledge, it's good to learn, and it helps you ID things. So for me, as I said before about leaf shape and colour, for me colour is everything. I don't do so well looking at books that are black and white. So on Thursday I did this presentation at the Sunshine Coast for a catchment group, and my old TAFE teacher was sitting in the front seat, and it was so good to show him where I'm at, because I go back and I remember when I was doing an exam with him and I was struggling. It was botany. And I was struggling. And he was like, "What's going on, Russ? You know this?" And I went, "Oh, yeah." And he said, "Let's go for a walk." And we went for a walk and we looked at all the plants. And I knew all the features. And then she's like, "How do you not know that?" And that's because it's all black and white. So for me, colour is everything. And I love green. Green's my favourite colour. But there's so many different shades of green. And you can say to people, "No, it's got blue in it." How do you see that it's got blue in it? Have a look. It's a blue. So that is probably one of the most important things for me is colour, but leaf arrangement, and that's basic botany as well. So, okay, as I said, and colour is my thing. So things pop out. I don't know. I think native plants look better than exotics. Okay, that to me, I would much rather look at a red cedar than, I don't know, anything an exotic that looks similar. So me, they have more shine. I think it's just being Australian, they're just better looking. So, but as I say to people, most plants have retained their features. So whether they're a seedling or a mature specimen, they should have very similar. They don't lose their key ID features. Some plants do. I don't know if you know of Myrcene variabilis, but variabilis, when it's little, it's toothed, and as it grows, it loses that toothed margin until, as it's sort of halfway through, it's half the leaf's got tooths and the other half doesn't, and it's things like that. Dry Pedis is another one. I'm not quite sure. Starts off really prickly margin, and then as it grows, I love plants like that. I love watching that change as they mature. But you can see features in seedlings as what you'd see in mature species. So you can watch these things grow, and this is a great thing in the nursery. You can just watch these things grow, and you can see them go. They still keep their features. I know this slide's not that great, but you can see it's little hairs along the margin. It's got, it's opposite. So you can see those same features as it grows, and it's still got that. Strangely enough, as this plant matures, it loses those hairs. So that's just another little thing. So, and then as it gets a little bigger, you can start to see it's still got those same features as what it had when it was a tiny seedling. They're just a little bit more pronounced now. Okay, so you probably know this is just brush box, Lophostomen convertus. Really common plant. But how do we do that in the field? We can't walk around and just go, "Oh, I've got a tray of plants here. Oh, look at this one. It's just going to go to the next one." So how do we do that? We have to work backwards. Okay, so like I was saying before, know what plants are on your site. And it's easy. I don't know if you get this plant down here. I did see it along the highway, probably about as far as Coffs. I got to try and look at the road when I drive. I'm often looking around. And I didn't have my wife with me to say, "Quick, stop, there's a car in front of us." But so I tell everyone, work backwards. It's easy to find something when it's in flower. That's the easiest thing to ID. The easiest way you can go, "Yep, that's what that is because it's in flower or it's in seed." It's got that characteristic you can see. But if it doesn't have flowers, are you still going to be able to identify it? And so as a bush regenerator, this is how we go. We work backwards. So as you go onto your site, you know whatever it may be that you're taking out mature ones, looking around, and just work your way back. And as you can see, this one comes right back to at a seedling stage. It's not even compound, it's simple. I've shown this photo to so many people and they go, "What? that's got simple leaves when it's young. It's like, yeah, you didn't know that? And these are things. A lot of people aren't sort of thinking about that. And that's what I'm trying to change. I'm trying to change that mindset of we've got to look and know them when they're little as well as they're big. So I do this with all our volunteers. We have a little system where we just take some ribbon and clips, and we have one guy who runs out in the morning in the area that we're going to work, and he'll just clip on all the weeds so we don't have any off-target damage. But although we'll go and teach people and say, look, don't mistake this senna for coffee bush. And so we'll always show them those similarity ones, but we don't take that risk. So by tagging up things, and as our volunteers walk past and they cut, scrape and paint, they take the tag off and put it back on their shirt, and they sort of bring that back as like a little thing of, look what I've done. I've done 10 plants or 7. So my favourite saying is, if you don't know, let it grow. Do you know what I mean? There's not many plants out there that are going to go to seed within a maintenance round. That's very, very rare for that to happen. So a lot of things are going to take years. So you don't have to know, but you can take your time and just let these things grow. And that'll start to show you its features as it grows. So this is a very common rainforest pioneer that we have, sort of from probably Coffs north, goes right up to central Queensland, something that you want on your site. So they're things that I really look for, because certain pioneers can change your site. And if you can get those pioneers in that are going to fruit quickly and attract birds, they're very valuable, whether they're at this size or at a sapling size. So this plant, again, it's starting to show its features. You can see these things. You can start seeing, oh yeah, that's starting to get that leaf shape. So I'm sort of quite aware of what that's becoming. And then you can see, for me, it's this brown in the leaf, and hence the name brown couragong. So it gets that brown colour. But if you look, if I went back a few slides to where I'm pointing at something in amongst the things, that's what I'm pointing at. And it's that little bit of brown. It was tiny little bit of brown. Everything else was green. That had that tiny little hint of brown that catches my eye. So these are two very similar species. As you can see, they're in that same family, Aralaceae. So one on the right is a native from North Queensland. Was very popular in landscaping in the 80s, so they brought it down by the truckloads, and now in South East Queensland, northern New South Wales, that's considered an environmental weed, and we take it out. It's fruit. But the other one is celery wood, probably one of my favourite plants. And it's one of those really good 10 minutes. It's one of those really good pioneer species. So it does that same thing. It puts on, grows very quickly, brings out nice fruit to attract the doves in, and as a bird lands in the trees, first thing it usually does is poop, and it's going to bring in some seed with it. It'll bring in bad seed, but it'll bring in good seed. So these are probably the two hardest ones to work out. And as you can see, very much so I'll just go back, sorry. That one, much glossier, you can see that. And that's another thing, you look, that's the feature of this specimen. And those leaves will grow quite quickly on the umbrella tree, whereas the polycea still grows quick, but each leaflet will stay smaller. So, okay, so I was going to have a look at some comparisons, and this is where it all started. I've got I've got camphor laurel there, and another native laurel called Murragon, or Cryptocarya microneura. For me, very similar things. So I'm just going to quickly go through a few things. So as I said, this is where it all started, with camphor laurels and people coming out and pulling out native laurels, thinking it was this. And this is what the book is based on, is just looking at those little features. So that red petiole. And with everyone says, oh, camphor laurel has the smell. But if you've got a knapsack on, you can't really bend down or you can squat. I got thighs like, I don't know, a weightlifter from squatting down with a 10-litre knapsack on. And you have a look. Or you can use your foot and you can roll that over and see that's glaucous underneath. But some of the native laurels are glaucous underneath. So we don't have that luxury to be able to snap a leaf off and crush it up and go, yeah, it's camphor laurel, pull that out. So, and a lot of times this is aimed at someone with a knapsack on. So you've got to look at those features, from the top looking down. So white bolygum, Neolithia, very, very similar looking plant. My elder brother lives in Budrum on the Sunshine Coast, backs onto a rainforest reserve, walks around ripping these things out every day. I'm like, what are you doing? Bloody camphor laurels, can't keep up with them. I'm like, dude, they're not camphors, have a look. Yeah, it's camphor laurel, look, it's glaucous underneath. Have a bloody look, have a smell of the leaf. Oh, right. So yeah, so I was pretty proud to give him a book and went, here, bloody read it. Do you know what I mean? So, but those features there, like that brown petiole in this, that's what we're looking for. They're those key features. Okay, so just looking at our old friend Lantana, opposite green leaves, very short petiole, hairy, they're the sorts of things that get in your head. And poison peach or tremor. Now this is a remarkably good looking tremor. It's so lush and green. Normally they're a bit bluer than that. Okay, but it still has the characteristics of being alternate. I don't know how many of these I've seen sprayed out by bush regenerators thinking they're Lantana. Happens a lot. So this is another one. I was considering taking this out of the slide, but then when I drove down here the other day, I thought that shit's down here everywhere. So this is golden rain tree. It's a horrible looking thing. Probably on Queensland plant identification, this comes up all the time. All the time. Is this a white cedar? No. How do I tell the difference? And I was lucky where I lived, my neighbour had about 3 of these things as mature. And this stuff would grow up in every crack in the concrete in my driveway. So I started looking at this and I went, right, I got my eye in. Because it normally has a bit of a red rachis on it, okay? Now, if you look at white cedar, very, very similar looking. But again, different colour. Like the projector on this slide is not that great, but you can see it's a softer colour. It's a softer looking plant. Its edges aren't as sharp. It's green. It's got a green rachis. So these are the things that we start to look at. So, but that's what the whole book's based on. I've put a weedling and possible seedlings that can be mixed up with. And I've gone through that whole thing. So did you have any questions?
Where can we get your book?
Over the back there. I'm doing specials today. Yeah. So I've got a few there. I've got a bucket load in the van up there. So I was going on Murphy's Law that if I only brought down a few, I'd have to go back and get more.
And what do you cover up in Blue Mountains? Would it be useful for me?
It possibly is. I've sold a few to people in Sydney, and I'm sure if rainforest in Blue Mountains, there could be some similar species. Then you'd have to have a look and just flick through. I'm getting the nod at the back there from Nicholas, like, yep. So I've based it from Capricorn Coast to pretty much Coffs Harbour, but yeah, it will extend down because I'm sure a lot of these weed species that we're finding up there, you guys are finding down here as well. Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to wrap that up because I don't want to be showing the 5-minute card. So thank you very much.